So in the episode so far, we have been attempting to gather ourselves a lot of rare scales, and we're doing quite well with that, but obviously these scales that we have been gathering are generally speaking quite slow shifters. But we are also getting a lot of regular leather while we're doing these farms, and that regular leather shifts at a much higher rate, so sometimes you're going to find yourself in a situation where you have a lot of the slower shifting high value items that just aren't selling yet, because a lot of these items do shift in big bulks when someone decides they want to craft something, but you won't have much in the way of smaller sales along the way. But you've already sold all of the common leathers that are associated that you're gathering from the same farm. And that's the situation I found myself in just now. So I sold all of my not hide leather that I gathered in the Grand while collecting the Cobra scales, but I'm yet to sell the Cobra scales, so I didn't really want to go and redo the farm and end up with having an obscene amount of Cobra scales just sat in my bank that I'm not going to shift in any kind of realistic time frame. Which led on to today's farm. So I was looking for a farm that was going to give me not hide leather that I've sold all of my supplies of, and also for really good money on my realm, which is why I'm bothering to go out of my way for a farm that is just for a regular leather. But I was talking to a friend who was crafting a piece of transmog that used a particular type of rare scale. So while I was trying to find a farm that was going to be able to provide this particular type of scale, I went scouting around to see what it was that dropped it. Now, the scale in question is the Nether Dragon scale, and these are a TBC mat, and they are incredibly rare but also very high value. And so I was scouting around. There is a few different locations that you can use for gathering these particular scales, and none of them really seem to have a particular advantage over the other. There were a couple that stood out as being particularly poor because there is an issue with relating to the Netherwing Drake reputation, but that was easily overcome if you decided that you wanted to do so, and as a result you couldn't really pick between any of the locations. But then I was just trying them out and realised that the farm that I'd elected to try out first for the Nether Dragon scales happened to be right next to another type of mod that provided another type of rare scale. This scale is the Wind scale, which is similar in terms of its use to the Nether Dragon scales in that it's TBC mats and it is going to be used primarily for rare transmogs. But the fact that these two farms are right next to each other means that there is an awful lot of potential for making gold in a single location for your skinning farm. So I'm going to pop a map up for you that's going to show you the area that we're farming, which is in Blade's Edge Mountains, and I'm going to highlight in two different colours the two different locations of the creatures that give these respective scales. So as you can see, they are really right next to each other. I'm not joking. These mobs are practically touching. You can get in range of the mobs for both one type of scale and the other type of scale on the overlap and be able to moonfire them both from the same location. That is how close these mobs are together. Now, what I like to do is you can see there is sort of a naturally occurring ring, as it were, in this area, and the mobs cover about half of it. Now, simply because it works well for me in my head and liking to go around in circles, I start at any given point in this circle and just do laps. It's as simple as that. We're going to skin all of the mobs that are the lesser nether drakes that are going to give us the Nether Dragon scales, as well as these flying serpents that are going to give us the wind scales. You can skin other mobs in the region, the raptors particularly if you want, but they don't give anything particularly rare. But if you are after just getting your not hide leather, they do provide that, so do bear that in mind. Now, when it comes to getting to Blade's Edge Mountains, the easiest way that I've found to be able to do this is simply to go back to your capital city, be that Stormwind or Orgrimmar, go to your portal room, take the portal to Shatrath and just fly up. It's going to be a little bit of a flight from Shatrath, but there's nothing difficult about getting here. And once you're here, obviously you can just stay as long as you would like. Now, the next thing to consider, however, is the fact that this is an outdoor farm, and these mobs are very spaced out. You are going to be covering a lot of distance while farming these mobs, which means that there is going to be, it's not going to be mandatory that you have flying for this farm, but you're going to find it incredibly helpful. Now, a druid is perfect because obviously between mobs you can get the instant flight form, but even better still is if you have access to the legendary boots. that provide you with the ability to turn into a wisp that we've covered in previous videos. Now, the scales themselves that we're after are of incredibly high value, and if you want to sell them, of course, just sell them straight as is. But I have noticed a lot of people are unhappy with the idea of selling these scales. This is the belief that they just don't sell as quickly as they would like, and that's a very valid point. These items that we're going for, particularly in these farms, are all very slow shifting items. But you are going to gather the higher shifting leathers while doing so, so that's basically how I like to do it. I don't mind taking my time to shift the high value items because I'm getting consistent gold from the leathers that I'm gathering along the way. However, if you do want to increase your sale rate, the further through the process of creating the end product that you can do for yourself, the higher the value is going to be. This is simply because twofold, people are lazy and don't want to put in the effort themselves, and also because not everybody will have access to it, say if things are locked behind having a profession. So, however far through the system you can get, be it just gathering these scales and selling them, or then getting the patterns and making the leather worker have the capability to craft the transmog item and then sell the transmog item, is up to you. The further you go through the process, chances are it's going to greatly increase your profit margins and also increase your sale rate. But obviously it is a considerable more investment on your part. The recipes that use these two particular scales in this farm, for example, the ones that provide a sellable piece of gear are all world drops, which means that you are going to be have to farming TBC mobs until you get fortunate and get the pattern. That, or you're going to be spending an awful lot of money on the auction house to gather the pattern, which is not something that I really recommend, because the amount of these items that you then have to craft in order to get your money back is usually quite high and not something that I like to do personally. I like to naturally gather these patterns over time for myself. One very small point of note on that though is that these mobs that you are killing for this farm are of course TBC mobs, so there is no reason why, if you have amazing good luck, you couldn't get a recipe from these mobs while you are doing this farm. Do not go here specifically for that intention though, because these drops are from any TBC mobs, and it's simply just the more of them that you can kill, the better the likelihood of getting one of these patterns, and you aren't killing very many mobs by comparison to other farms with this skinning farm. And the one final thing that I do want to mention, it goes without saying at this point, but with all of these farms, it is always best if you have a second gathering profession with you. I do personally like to have mining, and with this farm, because of the ground you're covering, you're going to go past a lot of mining nodes. You're going to be getting yourself a lot of adamantine, potentially some fell iron, and more hopefully we are going to be getting ourselves some eternium and even corium from this farm. Now obviously this is a skinning guide and having the mining is far from mandatory, but it is going to greatly increase your profit margins if you find even a single corium vein, which are often worth 2,000 gold plus per vein. So do bear that in mind. But that's going to about do it for this video guys. I do hope you found it helpful. If you did, please do consider liking the video. If you want to be kept up to date with the future videos in this guide, please do consider subscribing to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next one. Later.